Hey everyone, we're back here live at PlatformCon Day in New York City, part of PlatformCon virtual event. Well, this isn't virtual, the rest of the event's virtual. But you know, the people you run into. So I'm standing online for lunch and I say, you know, that looks like Ian. But I'm trying to read his tag, but he's in front. So it's one of those parallel line lunch things and he's a little in front of me. But I don't want to skip the salad.
Of course not.
But I had to skip the salad to get a good angle. But then he saw me. He said, Alan. Anyway, let me introduce you to my friend Ian Amit. I know. If you knew Ian like I knew Ian. I first met Ian, I'll tell you when. Yep. I remember the very first B-Sides Las Vegas.
Correct. I remember you giving me a ride back.
Yes, I gave you a ride back. And you know, a butterfly flies on that side of the world. I was the, what the heck? The next year, as a result of that, I was the wrangler for sponsors.
Right.
And me and this guy, Gene Kim, was also on the board that year trying to help make B-Sides Las Vegas successful. And then Gene says, hey, you want to grab dinner tonight? And I went to dinner with Gene and we had about 2 bottles of wine. And he says, I'm working on this book. I'll show you an early manuscript and tell you who are the characters based on. Well, that book was the Phoenix Project.
Of course.
And as a result of that, I started DevOps.com and everything else that's happened in my life in the last 12 years, 14 years.
Is thanks to me, basically.
Yeah, thanks to you. You're the butterfly on the other side of the world that was flapping its wings. So, Ian, you're a well-known legend in the security business.
Right.
What are you doing here at PlatformCon?
Great question. So, as you alluded to, my background is in security. That's where I grew up. That's where I spent over 25 years. Everything from a practitioner, hacking, pen testing, red teaming, you name it. I've probably done it in security twice and 3 times over. My last couple of roles were as a CISO.
Yeah.
So, you just stick around for long enough, you end up at those positions. And guess what? The last, 4 or 5 years of that kind of executive roles, I realized that one of the biggest problems that I've ran into, kind of speaking about the butterflies and DevOps and how it came around, we're filled with frustration. Yeah. That, security got to a point where we're really good at pointing out stuff and finding everything that's wrong and fixing some of it. But specifically in cloud environments, the frustration came to fruition when I realized, again, I have too much visibility, but I can't really do anything about it. When I'm trying to fix things, I run into a brick wall that's called DevOps.
Yeah.
These guys are overworked. Security is only one of their concerns.
Yep.
And, sliding into their schedule, kind of dripping a little bit of alerts and tasks just didn't, it's untenable. I'm finding more stuff that they can ever fix. And in the back of my mind, I'm still, hands-on. I'm like, look, this is an engineering problem. It's not even a security problem. These cloud environments are highly codified. Why can't we just automatically fix it? And I was looking around, no solutions. Everything around security was all about alerts and automating the process of pushing tickets. I was like, it doesn't matter. If you can, push more tickets, that's not going to solve the problem. You got to solve the bottleneck. And that's what led me to basically start this. So under that realization that, we got to shift truly left and fix the problem where it lives. And on the engineering side, I started Gombach, and that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're actually doing. So that's what I'm doing here.
Got it. We're going to dive more into that. I'm reminded when Still Secure is one of the companies I co-founded, right? So this is when we thought IDS was ready to go to IPS.
I remember that, yeah.
And to me, it was a no-brainer, right? Because the fact of the matter is, the average attack I forget how many bits, but by the time it hit the firewall, it passed through that router, went to you, you had to make a decision.
Right.
It was over already. They were in, they were out, they were out, they were in, and it was done.
Yep.
If it was an obvious thing, and back then obvious things were like code red,
Right,
or,
yep.
or, you know, those kinds of worms, why wouldn't you just block it? Why not just block?
You're walking into dangerous territory.
No,
So
this is the problem.
this is my second startup. My first startup back in 2004
That's when this
was in that confluence of IDS versus IPS. Guess what we did? We realized that you had hundreds of rules
Yes.
enabled on the IDS. However, on the
6.
IPS, exactly 6.
I know.
And you know why?
I lived the same life.
Exactly, because there's no confidence, high rate of false positives.
Yeah.
And that startup back then was called Bfence. We literally sat on that precipice between IDS and IPS, validated their alerts so that we can deal with them on the IPS side.
Yeah.
Fast forward 20 years, we have the same situation now
It's the
in
same.
the cloud. I have hundreds of alerts from my CSPM and CNAP and all the fancy things that I can buy for a lot of money. A lot of them are false positives.
Still.
That's a big part of
And
that
the whole
lack of confidence.
desensitization.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
overworking the SOC worker. Except, as you mentioned, it's a little worse now in that it's not just confined to the security guy.
Correct.
We're pushing it on the
dealing
DevOps
with-
engineer. We're pushing it on the developer.
Correct.
Who doesn't necessarily want that aggravation. They just want to develop.
They want to, deploy stuff. Exactly. Exactly.
So is platform engineering the answer?
I don't know if it's the answer, but it's another milestone in in the journey. It started with DevOps, as you know, and then DevSecOps.
Right.
And platform engineering, again, the way that I see it, is just another step towards that correct direction. So we started DevOps, DevSecOps. PE is really where it's at these days, where everything is kind of embedded together, security and operations and the DORA metrics. And so yes, it's this
what
is
we
the
have
proof.
today.
This is the proof. I'm here. I'm meeting, my customers where they're at, not just with the product, where again, we started as a security product. We ended up being a DevOps product.
Great. What a great story.
It is, because I had that understanding that, again, this is not a security problem. Security doesn't have a problem in the cloud. They can detect whatever they want. It's an engineering problem. It's a bandwidth problem. It's a knowledge gap problem.
Yeah. There's that, and there's also a scalability problem.
Exactly.
Right, which is, I think, look, we obviously run DevOps.com, but we also run PlatformEngineering.com.
Correct.
And because to me anyway, I saw it as you scale up, that DevOps job mission becomes much, much harder. And you can't just say, oh, well, we'll shift left, we'll shift, we'll shift more left, we'll keep shifting left. Eventually you come to the precipice and I don't know,
this is it,
like the movie Wall Street, man looks in the precipice and that's when he knows he's a man, bud. But so you can't just shift left your way out of this. And to me, platform engineering is, instead of just putting it on a developer, instead of the security guy banging his head on the wall until his head or the wall gets soft.
Right.
Can we pre-game it? Can we engineer it
100%.
so that it is finally built in, not bolted on?
It is. And that's exactly the approach that we're taking. As I mentioned before, we're meeting our audience where they're at. Not just here physically in New York in platform engineering with our audience, the engineers, but also with the product. We don't open tickets. We're done with tickets.
The world has enough tickets.
The world's got enough tickets. We're opening PRs. Here's the fix. I did the work for you. By the way, I'm not taking your job. I did that work for you so that you can free yourself up to deal with architecture, with functionality.
The things you're supposed to do.
Exactly. The toil goes away. The knowledge gap gets closed in a PR. And even further left, in your IDE, as you develop, as you vibe code,
Right.
and and get. And you know what? You ask, is platform engineering the answer? I'm not sure. You know what? Next up is going to be, this whole IAC thing, this whole deployment thing is going to move completely to the developer side because DevOps is going to go away
Right.
because it's fully democratized. You're going to have co-pilots and cursors and duos and things like that, generating the environment that the developer wants to support the application that they're building. But again, the problem right now with those Gen AI tools is that the environments they create aren't really grounded in reality. They're generative, and that's
But they'll
exactly
get
where we fit
better.
in.
I
They'll
do
get
believe
better. I
they'll
agree.
get better.
I agree. They'll get better, but as long as they're not deterministic,
Right.
and this is what kind of we set ourselves apart. We're using deterministic AI rather than generative.
With AI.
I know this is live, but we literally RTFM for the developer, for the engineer, based on the cloud documentation, based on the IAC, based on the security policies and the general DevOps policies, including FinOps, included optimization. We align those IAC platform, those IAC templates to what you actually need to accomplish, to the
And where
constraints.
does this live, Ian?
So this lives either in your IDE or in your Git pipelines, in your DevOps
Git.
pipelines. Where it should live as a reviewer that produces those remediations.
And I mean, it's not like a person reviewing it. It's a process automated.
It's a fully automated process. You don't have to wait for someone to review it. It gets done within seconds.
I love this.
All you have to do is, again, you can either vibe code it, or you can manually code it, or use your existing code. The second you introduce us, we come in, we review, and we provide those remediations, those fixes. Nothing is done automatically. So you still have full control, just like a DevOps architect should have. Someone, instead of it being a junior DevOps engineer, it's us, comes up with a PR, fully explained, fully reasoned, fully documented. Here's what we're doing, why we're doing it. Here's the gaps we're closing, fully contextualized. Again, this is not template-based. This is not paved roads. As much as I love paved roads, we're paving the roads.
Right.
We're not forcing you to, you have to go, to get from here to here, you have to go from here to here to here to here to here. That's paved roads. I just want to go from A to B. We'll pave the road for you. We'll provide the specific code that supports what you're trying to accomplish with the combination of meeting all the security requirements, all the policies that your management set. Bam, there's the code. Review it. If you like it, merge it. Great. If you don't, make some modifications. That's it. As I said, we're meeting the engineers where they're at. No
What
tickets.
about scalability here?
Easy. We're operating at the code level.
So
That's it.
it's happening at its
happening
time.
as
So there is no backlog. none of that
exactly.
crap.
There's no backlog. I'm not bound by the scalability of your cloud platforms. Even better, at code, you can describe an environment using 5, 10 resources. That might show up as thousands of resources in your cloud environment. That's exactly the scalability. We're operating at the code level. We're making sure that that is done precisely and correctly so that your actual deployments are going to be precise and correct.
Let me ask another question here. It can live in my Git pipeline,
Correct.
or as you say, in the IDE, depending what IDE I use, I guess.
Sure.
But is it sort of an agent that you're doing here and it's talking to your mothership out here? Is it?
To a degree, yes. So obviously we enforce or deploy the deterministic AI in a localized fashion on your end. And I can probably kind of preempt what you're asking. No, we don't really need your code. I'm not learning from it. This is a big difference between generative AI and deterministic AI. I don't need to learn from other people's mistake to push them into your code.
Right.
That's how vibe coding kind of works.
Yeah.
So yes, it does live in your localized environment, and yes, it does speak with the mothership. The mothership typically, provides the constraints. It provides the policies. So, if you're working for an organization that wants to meet NIST CSF or CIS benchmarks or AWS well architected, whatever policy it is, that lives in the mothership.
Okay.
that gets applied to your localized version of your code. That's where the fixes are being applied back to your Git environment. So yes, it is a SaaS product.
Right.
It's very lightweight. It is operating in sort of an agentic AI fashion, whereas it mimics the behavior of an agent, of
Sure.
a developer, and hence the integration.
We're almost out of time, but what's the website?
Website is gomboc.ai.
GOMBOC.AI.
We've just recently released a community edition. So
Oh, really?
yeah,
Okay, very
absolutely.
cool. Go check it out.
Go check it out. If you go to docs.gombox.ai, you'll see the community edition sign up. It's completely free. We don't ask for anything. No strings attached. The only limitation is that it only operates on Terraform code in GitHub. It's a GitHub app. So again, you can just deploy it, fix your code, experience it, and if you like it, we can keep talking.
I love it. Ian, it's
Alan,
a pleasure meeting
as
you,
always.
man. It's
Absolutely.
been too long.
I love the karma.
All right. Gombach.ai.
Correct.
My friend Ian Amit's company. Check it out. We're live in New York. We'll be back in just a moment.